you see the wonderful blue screen. That means it's time to talk Big Blue, and that's the New York Football Giants coming off a Week 1. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Box Drop Syracuse, the mattress and sofa outlet. And as you see in the screen right next to me, it is the one, the only, our Giants insider from Big Blue View, Ed Valentine. Hello, Ed. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. We're ready to talk Giants. I'm a little disappointed, I must admit. Let's start with the thing that really bothered me coming out of this Giants game, and that was the lack of execution by the offensive line. I know Andrew Thomas wasn't in there. You predicted it. I agree with you. Let's keep Thomas out until he's ready, until he can execute for the rest of this season. I don't want him getting re-injured just because we rush him back. But, man, the line just did not get the job done, Ed. Let's talk about it.
No, it did not. And look, whenever Andrew Thomas comes back, if it's this week against Dallas, if it's week 3 against Kansas City, that's going to help the left tackle position. You know, James Hudson is a backup for a reason. He's not a guy you want out there week 1. He's not a guy you want starting 17 games. So Thomas coming back will help, but it doesn't help what we saw from the other 4 positions. And what's disturbing about the other 4 positions is that none of these guys are newbies. None of these guys are inexperienced young players. Even John Michael Schmitz is in his 3rd year. John Runyon, John Michael Schmitz, and Greg Van Roten were the interior of that line most of the year last year. Jermaine Illuminor was the right tackle most of the year last year. And guys are going to get beat once in a while. The other guys get paid, in those one-on-one matchups. Guys are going to get beat once in a while, but it's disturbing. I just wrote something today that sort of applies. It's like, if guys aren't meeting their assignments, if they're not doing their assignments, if they're not sure what their assignments are, if they know what their assignment is and they clearly don't execute it correctly, what on God's green earth have they been doing since OTAs started in April? Right. What have they been doing? This is week 1. You're supposed to know this stuff by now. You're supposed to know. That was fun.
Yeah, I don't know what that was, but sorry about that.
You're supposed to know, which guy you're supposed to block on a pin pull or a duo or whatever concept you're running. You're supposed to know if you're Theo Johnson. Our one of our guys, Chris Flum, pointed out on one of the red zone failures by the Giants that Theo Johnson not only dropped a pass from Russell Wilson, but he created the mess by not bothering to throw the chip block he was supposed to throw to start the play off. And it's like, come on. You're not a rookie. You're not playing in your first NFL game. You've done this before. You've practiced this a million times. How can you not go out on the field, or how can you go out on the field and not know or not execute your assignment? And that's look, the Giants have the personnel that they have, but when guys are not executing their assignments, that whether it comes back to Daboll or whether it comes back to the position coaches or whether it comes back to everybody, it reflects badly on the coaching staff as well as the players.
No, it does. There's no question about it, Ed. And for any of us that are longtime Giant fans, and I'll put myself in that boat, this is not for lack of working at this during the offseason. We're talking about draft picks. Evan Neal, a high draft pick who wasn't even available once again to play in this game. You mentioned Schmitz, who a lot of people thought could be a really good center, and so far that isn't working out so well. All right. And then you've got the beleaguered Andrew Thomas, who's not in there, and the Giants need him in there so badly because he's clearly the best guy that they have. So what's the fix? Is there a fix, or is this just going to get worse?
Jim, I really don't know what the fix is because, I posted a story right before we started to record. The headline of it is "Same Old Giants?" ? They don't have much time to prove otherwise. And we went into, some of what the problems are. And there are no easy solutions because, look, Andrew Thomas can help one spot on the offensive line, but he can't help five.
Right. It doesn't.
Jackson Dart will eventually, at some point, replace Russell Wilson. But what are we going to get from Jackson Dart? What's he going to be able to do if the offensive line can't block? If they average 2 yards a run play when they hand the ball to a running back? If none of the receivers are open, if the Giants don't call plays and give him options to get the ball out of his hands quickly, and get a guy open, fairly quickly, what's he going to do? What's he going to help? They're just, Micah McFadden's hurt. He's one of their best run defenders. So I don't know that there are answers. It's like Brian Daboll said Sunday night, we just have to do better. Well, how do you do better? Well, you do better. The only way you can do better at this point is by hammering guys and making sure that they know their assignments.
Yeah.
And that they execute their assignments. If you're not good enough to make the plays, you're not good enough to make the plays, but do the basics. And that's the thing that's disturbing. And on defense, when you've got 2nd and 19, when you've got 3rd and 12, you've got to be able to figure out a way to cover guys or pressure the quarterback and get off the field. That should be an advantageous situation for the Giants. And yet when they get 2nd and 19, I'm like, okay, how are they going to mess this one up?
Yeah.
Right. Because every time they get into that situation, you would think, oh, this is great. They're going to force a punt. They're going to get the ball back. And next thing you know, it's a 16-yard pass. And instead of, 3rd and long, it's 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 3. And, and that's just not good. So I don't know, because there's no major personnel changes that they can make.
Yeah. I mean, we've already heard from Brian Daboll this week, and we know that Russell Wilson, and here's a shot of him being beleaguered here by multiple Washington defenders. We saw a lot of this in this game. We saw a crazy, let me just get rid of it because they're bearing down on me. This shot,
that's right ridiculous. That was ridiculous
play by Wilson. That was a really, really, really poor play. Just totally fearing the rush. But there came a point in this game, Ed, where Wilson just started looking down instead of looking up, because it was just a jailbreak almost every time he went back to pass. And I don't want to see Jackson Dart in that situation. I really don't. Does he have more escapability probably at his young age with his young legs than a Russell Wilson does at this point? I would have to say yes, but I still don't want him back there getting killed. I just don't think it's good for the franchise to rush this guy onto the field just simply because an offensive line can't stop guys.
Absolutely. I have said over and over, and I understand that, I was in Daboll's press conference because I was in Landover, Maryland on Sunday. But I understand that he has to be asked about Wilson and Dart, when things don't go well, and he's going to continue to be asked until a change gets made.
This is what happens when you draft a quarterback, Ed, right?
This is what happens when you draft a quarterback in the first round. You're going to be asked every single week, when is he going to play?
Yep.
Until he does play. I remember, and this is a complete aside. The Giants, way back in the day, I think it was the year after, I think it was 2018. It was the year before they drafted Daniel Jones. They drafted Kyle Lauletta in the 4th round, and they had a bad team. Kyle Lauletta was a soft tossing, poor man's Chad Pennington, who bounced out of the league in a hurry. And yet Pat Shurmur got asked every single week, when was Lauletta going to play? And every single week he said, he's not ready yet to be an NFL quarterback. And in a late season game, he finally put Lauletta in a game. And Lauletta went 0 for 5 and looked completely overwhelmed. And after the game, Pat Shurmur basically said, I told you guys. I told you guys he wasn't ready to play.
Right. Yep.
But I have said again and again and again in reference to Jackson Dart that the best thing would be for the Giants to be able to hold off as long as possible before putting him out there. The best thing would be to put him out there in a good situation when they're functioning halfway decently, or it's the end of the season and a lot of teams are playing out the string, and all of that. And so throwing him in there week 2, week 3, it's not a good recipe. Who knows when it's going to happen, but goodness, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Chargers, the Eagles, the Denver Broncos would just lick their chops, and they would throw the kitchen sink at Jackson Dart, and it just wouldn't be good.
Right. And rightly so, because that's what I would do if I would defend
Absolutely
against a young quarterback like that, especially the way the line is playing. That line just has to play better. I hope it was an anomaly, Ed, and not
well.
a sign of things to come
What,
for the offensive line.
the last thing I will say about the line is this: I understand that Greg Van Roten is 35 years old, and he was okay at best last year. He was among the guys who started the season, in the starting 5. He was probably the weakest link, but he was okay. He's not going to get better than he is. He's just not at 35. But what's disturbing is when Andrew Thomas was in the lineup last year for the first 6 games, that line was league average. That line played okay. I don't understand. It bothers me to see what you'd almost consider to be regression from a veteran group of linemen. I mean, John Michael Schmitz is never going to be a physically mauling, dominating center. He's just not. But just not picking up stunts, not picking up assignments, not being able to execute your run blocks and stay in front of guys. That's just stuff I wouldn't expect from an experienced line with guys that have played together.
Ed, there was another scene we got to talk about. Here's a picture of it. Malik Neighbors not happy with his coach, Brian Dable, early in this game. I think it was in the second quarter. They weren't targeting Neighbors all that much. Granted, the Commanders were pretty much double teaming, it looked like, on almost every route that he was out on. So there was probably good reason why the Giants weren't throwing the ball in his direction. But frustration setting in. We know Neighbors. He's an emotional player. There's no question. And we like that competitive nature. But in game 1, kind of having this verbal spat in public with your coach on the field, it's just not good for optics. And it's certainly not good for Brian Dable.
Optically, it wasn't great. The funny thing is both guys downplayed it. They're like, we're both just fiery people who want to win. And neither guy made a big deal out of it. But yeah, the optics aren't good. There was another play that I'm not sure everybody noticed where the Giants did a lot of rotation with Abdul Carter, who was tremendous on Sunday. They did a lot of rotation with Carter and Thibodeau and Brian Burns and Chauncey Golston and guys coming in and out. And I didn't get a chance to ask Brian Burns about this, but Carter was in the game on a play, and Burns was coming in on the next play to replace Carter. And Carter was busy. I don't know if he was arguing with one of his teammates or arguing with an official about something that happened. And I'm watching Brian Burns come in the game, and he took both hands and he shoved Abdul Carter off the field. He literally shoved Carter off the field. And I was like, that didn't look too good either.
Yeah.
But I didn't get a chance to ask him about that. I will if I get the opportunity, but I'm sure he'll tell me he doesn't even remember having done it. But no, I mean, I think sideline stuff like that between Dable and Neighbors is just par for the course. I did laugh though when the second half started. The first play was to Malik Neighbors, and I was like, here we go. It's just going to be Wilson to Neighbors, Wilson to Neighbors, Wilson to Neighbors the entire second half. It didn't work out that way, but Jim, the Giants, I don't know if you saw the stat. I think it's from a group called OptaStats that pointed this out. The Giants, which I knew this, they have not scored a touchdown in their last 3 season openers. They've scored 12 total points in their last 3 in their last 3 openers. They have scored in the first half of their first games, including the win over Tennessee where they had the second half comeback. You know how many points they've scored in the first half of those 4 games?
No.
6.
Oh my!
6 total points.
Wow.
But the stat I was going to point out is they're the first team since the 1940 to 42 Detroit Lions not to score a touchdown in 3 straight season opening games. And that's just, we asked Brian Daboll over and over and over about being ready for the season and ready for week 1. And he said, "Oh, we need to be, and we will be, and this and that." And well, it's been 3 years in a row. You haven't been ready. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what the answers are.
All right, you mentioned Abdul Carter, so let's talk about him and let's give him a grade. How do you grade him here for his first professional game here with the New York Football Giants?
Oh, B+ to an A-. I think the grade might have been higher if he had more snaps, but the rotation, the first week of the season, I think the Giants didn't want to overplay anybody. I think he only played about 50% of the defensive snaps. Partially blocked a punt, almost got his hands on a couple of other punts. I don't know how much special teams he's going to play. I'm guessing not a lot as his number of defensive snaps goes up. Really outstanding sequence from him right at the end of the first half. Had a run stop that created a third down, at about the 3-yard line. And then it was the rush by Carter that caused Jaden Daniels, I think with 3 seconds left, to panic and throw the ball into the seats without a receiver around, and ended up, of course, with an intentional grounding that ended the half because of the 10-second runoff that they have, and took points away from Washington. So good, impactful debut for Carter. I thought Brian Burns was good. Kayvon Thibodeau was good. The edge guys were, for me, as advertised. It's just not a lot of other things to feel good about.
All right, we're talking with Ed Valentine, our Giants insider. It's the Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up, like the video, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel at MC Show Digital. Ed, we're giving away a really cool item. I don't know if you've seen this yet, but I have a David Tyree autograph The Catch photo framed. It's sitting right here on my wall in my little home studio, and it is going out the door to one of our first 300 subscribers. We're just a couple dozen away from getting to 300.
Come on, people. We know one of you wants that. We know one of you wants that.
I'm going to miss looking at that every day. That's a fun thing to look at. It brings back some good times, some good memories, man. We need these things.
When you get to $2.99, can you message me?
Okay, I will.
I'll be 300, and you can send that. You can send that baby to me.
I love that. Today's broadcast brought to you by our friends at Box Drop Syracuse, the mattress and sofa outfit. Let's just take a quick break, and we'll learn a little bit more about our friends from Box Drop.
Considering that we sleep nearly 1/3 of our lives, buying the right mattress is essential. At Box Drop Syracuse Mattress and Sofa Outlet, you'll get a unique experience, one that saves you 30 to 70% off retail prices on top-of-the-line mattresses like Sapphire Sleep. At Box Drop, you'll schedule a mattress fitting appointment and get one-on-one service directly with Paul, the owner. No middleman. Family-owned, huge savings, no-pressure sales designed to save you time and money. And now Box Drop Syracuse has sectional sofas and love seats as well, with prices designed to fit your budget. Box Drop Syracuse Mattress and Sofas. Set up your appointment today at boxdropsyracuse.com.
And I have purchased from Box Drop myself 30 to 70% off. It's no joke. Really, really great prices. If you are looking for a mattress here in Central New York, go see our friends at Box Drop. Talking with Ed Valentine. It's our Inside the Giants segment. We're talking all things New York Football Giants, of course, coming off a loss 21-6. No touchdowns, as you heard Ed just say. We all want to feel hope, Ed. Give me some hope. I know you're no doctor, But how much closer could it be this week? Is it going to be the following week? We need Andrew Thomas back in that left tackle spot on that offensive line. What are your expectations here now that week one they decided not to play Thomas?
Well, I think, a couple of years ago with Wan'Dale Robinson coming back off of a knee injury, it was week 3 before Robinson played. It might be week 3 for Andrew Thomas as well. As far as my expectations, I don't know. This team, to me, has more talent than what it showed on Sunday. It should be better than what it showed. Now, look, Russell Wilson is what Russell Wilson is. And if you're going to get, if you're going to get the best out of Russell Wilson, you have got to find a way to give him protection to throw the deep ball. You're going to get some inconsistency when he throws the shorter stuff. It's been that way for him for 13 years. It's not really going to change now. But they have to find a way to run the ball better. Maybe that means, using a fullback. I don't know. But maybe that means running the ball more to the edges and trying to get away from trying to power through the middle, which obviously is not going to work.
Not working.
But they have to play better on offense, and they have to find a way to get off the field in those long yardage situations. And they have to find a way. Did they come close to creating a turnover on Sunday? I don't think they did. I think Cordell Flott knocked down one pass.
Yeah.
And look, if the Giants are going to be successful, they're going to have to turn people over. They're going to have to get some game-changing plays from this defense. This defense can't just be solid. It can't be, okay, well, we only gave up 14 points, or we only gave up 21 points. For me, the thing about the defense is, what did you create? What opportunities did you create? That's where this defense really has to shine for the Giants. I don't know what to expect. I did not expect, what we saw on Sunday. I expected better. And by the way, everybody has seen this and everybody knows, but it certainly doesn't help anything that Daniel Jones played like an all-pro on Sunday.
I know.
It certainly doesn't help anybody's mood in the Giants universe that Daniel Jones played like an all-pro, behind a legitimate offensive line, albeit against a junior varsity team in the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, and Dolphins are not very good, but still, that was a very good performance by Jones, and I'm happy for Jones, in all honesty. But as a Giant fan, it definitely stings. By the way, I mean, if we want to put a silver lining on this, I mean, the fact of the matter is that this was a road game to open the season against, really on paper, what is a superior opponent, a team that went very deep into playoffs last year with a really difficult quarterback to defend. And boy, it looks like Jaden Daniels, based on what I saw on Sunday, has improved his game. That those little mid-range that he was not so great with last year, dropping those in regularly against the Giants. I mean, he looks like a new and improved version. It looks like he has spent some time during the offseason working on his weaknesses. But look, this is a game the Giants were supposed to lose on the road in division against the better team. So yeah, we could look at the result and say this was miserable. 6 points. My goodness, the offensive line is a sieve. We got people arguing with each other on the sidelines. But the fact of the matter is they were supposed to lose this game. So it's full steam ahead here. So let's go ahead, Ed. Let's forget about this one. I'm ready to, flush it, as they say. All right. And let's talk about the next one, because the Giants do get a break here. They are not going to face the Dallas Cowboys and Micah Parsons, who can really wreck an offensive line. Instead, they're getting a much tamer, dare I say, Dallas defense without the game wrecker Parsons in there. I know the Giants have to travel to Dallas for this game. The Cowboys look pretty decent in the loss in the season opener against the Philadelphia Eagles. But let's talk about the Giants' chances in this one, and what are your expectations in terms of the Giants being competitive against the Cowboys in Big D?
Well, when I looked at the beginning of the season a while back, you would target this game, especially with Parsons now being in Green Bay. You would target this as a winnable game for the Giants. Absolutely. I don't know what possessed me to pick the Giants to beat the Commanders when I made my picks last week, but I should have known better. But this on paper should be a winnable game. This should be a game where that's not a great run defense in Dallas. It's not a great run defense. They should be able to establish some sort of running game.
Mm-hmm.
Without Parsons, who's the game wrecker. So unless, and of course, you would have said Washington doesn't have a great pass rush either. They should have been able to keep Russell Wilson somewhat comfortable.
Yeah.
But you would expect a better performance from the Giants. I think that's the thing. That's the thing that has everybody feeling so miserable about the Giants right now, including most of the media that's writing about them, and myself included, is what people want is optimism. They want signs that it's getting better. If you watched the Monday Night Football game, Jim, the Chicago Bears lost that game to the Minnesota Vikings. Great comeback engineered by J.J. McCarthy, who could have been a Giant, by the way. But they lost. But how good do Chicago Bears fans probably feel today about the way that they saw Caleb Williams play on Sunday? Probably better quarterback play from Williams, on Monday night. More creative, more disciplined in a lot of ways. Probably better quarterback play than they saw from him all of last year. Correct. So they lost, but they have to come out of that feeling like we're moving forward.
Correct.
And that's what Giants fans right now can't feel or don't feel, because it's more of what they're used to seeing, what they saw Sunday. So I think this is a winnable game for the Giants. I think it's a game they desperately need to win. I would hope that Brian Daboll feels the same way. I would hope that they pull out all the stops, whether that means they have to resort to trick plays, whether that means they have to send 6 or 7 pass rushers sometimes, get out of their own comfort zone and do some things to try to create some havoc.
This is a way too early, and I even hate asking questions like this, but I'm going to, because as you said, there is so little optimism coming out of game one here that it leads you to those questions that you hate to ask or you don't want to ask. Let me just ask you this general question. If this continued, this kind of play, this lack of optimism, would John Mara, in your opinion, pull the trigger during the season and oust his coach? Or is he going to be a patient man, wait until the offseason to make a decision, evaluate a full season, evaluate the progress of his young quarterback, wherever they start to insert him and however he starts to thrive or not thrive? Or is there a point of frustration here for this owner that might drive him to just say, look, I've had enough. It's just time for a change. This isn't working.
John is so
way too early question.
Absolutely. It's early for that, but John is so unpredictable, because even John, when he brought Joe Shane and especially Brian Daboll back, when he spoke to us and announced that decision way back in early January, he didn't even sound or look happy about it.
Yeah.
He didn't sound convinced that it was the right thing to do. He didn't sound convinced that the GM had made the roster any better. He didn't sound convinced. He's like, well, we're going to bring him back, but I better feel better a year from now than I do today.
Right. Yes.
So that is the absolute opposite of a ringing endorsement. So I have said consistently that I think John Mara and Steve Tisch, because we have to consider Tisch as well. He's got 50%. He's got a 50% share. Although I think John's voice tends to be the bigger one because he's there all the time. But I think John Mara is going to be looking for reasons to keep Brian Daboll and to keep Joe Shane. The problem is we're 1 week in, and that performance that they put on that they gave on Sunday has us talking about whether they made the right decision in the first place.
Correct. The pitchforks and the torches are getting lit right now.
They're already
pitchforks.
They're already out.
Yes.
I don't believe that John Mara will fire Brian Daboll until the Giants get Jackson Dart on the field and we see what that looks like. If there is, because this is why it's all so complicated and it's such a mess, because John Mara has said for years that what happened with Daniel Jones and the Giants is on the Giants more than it's on Daniel Jones. Mm-hmm. And he's not wrong about that. He's not wrong. He fired Pat Shurmur after Jones' rookie year, and Pat Shurmur got a good rookie year out of Daniel Jones. Problem is, Pat Shurmur was not really a head coach who had any real vision. He wasn't a guy that should have been a head coach. He probably should have been Jones' offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
But, he fired Shurmur and he hired Joe Judge and Jason Garrett, and that didn't work. And then he brought in Daboll and Shane, and because he fired Dave Gettleman, it was change after change after change, head coach after head coach, play caller after play caller. And that is no way to develop a young quarterback. And if you fire Brian Daboll, the guy that banged the table to draft Jackson Dart, if you fire Brian Daboll in the middle of the year or after the year, you're starting that Daniel Jones spin cycle all over again. If you get it right with the next head coach, if you hire, if you find, if you find a Kevin O'Connell, then you're good. But if you don't, then you've put Daniel Jones, or you've put, Jackson Dart into that spin cycle where he's never going to be what his talent says he could be.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Excuse me, Ed. All right, last one here. So we've got this game with the Cowboys. What about what the Giants are facing here? Dak Prescott back under center. There is no Micah Parsons, as we mentioned. How difficult will it be on this Giants defense to face what looks like a fairly explosive Dallas offense?
Oh, it is an explosive offense. Prescott's a good quarterback. It comes down to, I don't think the Dallas offensive line is what it used to be. Can the Giants win that line of scrimmage? And look, there were questions about the run defense because the run defense wasn't good last year. And you can say, most of the Washington running game came from Jaden Daniels and one long run late in the game, by a Washington running back. But the Giants still gave up 220 rushing yards. They still gave up 432 yards total. And that can't happen. You have to make Dak Prescott uncomfortable. And you have got to control the line of scrimmage against the run game. And that was the big question about this Giants defense, which I kept downplaying, and the other writers at Big Blue View have been hammering away at it. And I have continued to say that I think the talent is there to be a good run defense. The question is, with the talent that they have, why aren't they a good run defense?
Yeah.
So I don't know what the answer to that is, but for me, I don't think Dallas should go score 35 points on the Giants this week. Can the Giants get a game-changing play or two out of special teams or out of the defense? Can they get something that energizes them a little bit? Because there wasn't much of that on Sunday against Washington.
I kind of feel like in the early part of the season that the defense is going to have to win some games for the Giants if they're going to get wins.
Absolutely.
The defense.
And the defense, these guys can say, well, we'd only given up 14 points by the middle of the fourth quarter. And yes, that's true. But when had you handed the offense a short field?
Yeah.
When had you set the offense up, at the 50 or inside Washington territory? And the Giants defense is just going to have to do that.
Yeah. The Giants had that one bad sequence, Ed. I'll end with this, where they got that penalty down at the goal line and they had 3 cracks at it. And, those were 3 badly run plays by the Giants there on the offense.
What makes that even worse is that they had 1st and goal at the 10-yard line. And if you count the fact that that whole sequence, they ended up going for it on 4th down.
And that's when they got the penalty.
They get the penalty. They get 1st and goal at the 1. So when you total it all up, it's 7 plays from the 10-yard line or closer. 7 plays. They had 4 plays from you start at the 2-yard line with their 4th down play. Yeah. They had 4 plays from the 2-yard line and couldn't get the ball in. And I've had people say, why didn't they just give the ball to Scatabo on every play? Well, did you see what happened on the one play they did give it to him? Yeah, he got hit 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. That's why they didn't run the ball 3 times.
Yeah. And the line just wasn't getting the job done. Ed Valentine, always great catching up with you. Again, today's broadcast brought to you by our friends at Box Drop, the mattress and sofa outlet, where you can save 30 to 70%. Ed, we'll talk to you again next week, my friend. Take care.
All right. Thank you.